Yo, this episode of Bass Freaks is brought to you by Dunlop Super Bright Bass Strings. Dunlop Super Bright Bass Strings put your sound front and center with a bright yet musical top end, balanced fundamental, and a warm low end. Designed from the ground up to fit the vision of what a string should be, Super Bright Bass Strings provide a superior response that allows the natural voice of your bass to come through. Made in California at Dunlop headquarters, go to jimdunlop.com and check out Super Bright Bass Strings. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Dunlop Presents Bass Freaks. This is a place for all of us bass freaks to chat it up, gain a little insight and inspiration, and have some fun with some great bass players. I'm your host, Josh Paul, and today we welcome Oteil Brubridge to the show. Round of applause. This man right here is a huge inspiration to me, and I want to thank him for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me, man. I'm glad to be here.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Like we were talking off mic a little bit before, it's like there's so much happening, good and bad, but it's all at once. So I guess the volume is just turned up on everything, but the good part is the best ever. So, you got to roll with it. I guess it's not much different from just how the country is in general.
That is true. That's so true. Like I was saying before, I always say it comes in waves, and it either takes you down or it lifts you high in the sky, both at the same time in your case.
Yeah, and I'm becoming a better swimmer.
There you go. I like that, man. Sometimes you need floaties, but otherwise, yeah, you can wean yourself off, dude. For sure. So I haven't seen you in many, many years. I remember the first time we met was actually at a NAMM show, and I was little. I was probably 12, 13 years old. And I met you at the Modulus booth, and I was just staring at you in awe with these puppy dog eyes. I mean, I probably annoyed the crap out of you, but you were always so kind to me. And I want to say that I really appreciate that.
Oh, wow. That's cool. I found out that I met Thundercat. I didn't think that I had, but we were on a Zoom together after Rocco Prestia died. And it was like a tribute to him. Uh-huh. And he was like, yeah, I met Oteil. I met him at a NAMM show when I was really young. I was a kid. And I was like, oh, I did meet you. How could I have known? You probably looked a lot different too than he did when I met you,
Yeah, I didn't have as many tattoos, that's for sure, or a beard, but but yeah, man, you were so nice and so generous with your time and your expertise, and I really respect that. It made an impact on me and the way that I treat other musicians and just human beings in general. So I want to say thank you for that.
Well, I'm glad I wasn't an a-hole. I had some friends of mine, a particular friend of mine who met his hero, who I won't say who it is because we all know who it is. I mean, we all know this person, okay. But he just crushed him when he met him. He was such a big fan. The guy was such an a-hole to him, and I thought, man, I never could conceive of myself being in that position at that time. I was a teenager, but I just thought, what a drag, So later on, when I did have fans, and sometimes you're just not in the mood, and I remember that, I remember how it just broke my buddy's heart,
Yeah.
It just broke his heart, man. So but then I met Willie Nelson one time, and BB King, and they were so generous with their time, and they're such icons,
Yeah.
And one time I met Willie, I was on his bus. It was me and Derek Trucks and Susan Tedeschi, and they took me on his bus, and he was greeting people. There was like a line out the bus. Come in, say hi with Willie. You could take a picture, chat for a second, and then his wife would like keep the line moving. Oh, wow. So I'm just sitting on the bus now we never let anybody on our bus.
Yeah.
That's like that's the one place where you can just get away from everybody. right? Once you make it onto the bus, right?
Oh, that's your home.
So
that's you.
yeah. And so this took a long time. I mean, I bet it might have been 30 minutes or so, you know. And finally, the last person gets off there, and Willie, he grabs the apple and he says, I say, Willie, man, you are so generous with your time. Like, our bus is like, that's the one place that we can get away from everybody. You're not even like rushing people, you know? I was like, how do you do that? And he looks at me, he goes, Oteil, I'm just glad to be here.
Gratitude.
And I was like,
yeah.
Wow, I am such an a-hole. You know, like this guy is like such an icon with that level of humility and gratitude.
Yeah.
And I've seen it with BB King. I've seen, you know, there's certain people that are just beyond iconic that have that real humility, which I still don't have that. I'm still kind of arrogant compared to that at times, but it really put me in my place. I was just, it undid me. I was just like, wow. So now I'm way better. I mean, of course, when I met you, I wasn't nobody knew who I was, you know.
Well,
but
I knew who you were. You know.
Yeah, but I mean, bass players,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, and I don't know if that was after the Allman Brothers when you met me or before, because I had been doing some NAMM shows before Allman Brothers when only people inside the industry knew who I was, you know?
Yeah.
But so like if it was before 97, that's when I got the Allman Brothers gig.
It was before that. Yeah.
See, so I was not like a famous person, you know?
Okay. So then
and
I can't give you that much credit then.
You know, yeah. I mean, just not beyond just not being a general a-hole, you know, like go away, kid, you bother me, you know, like,
oh my
God. No, I was super grateful to be there. I was like, wow, a NAMM show's like going to Oz.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I never, you know.
Yeah, man. No, you were great. And as far as your experience with Willie and BB, I think, you know, we can really learn from those experiences. And it sounds like you did as well. It kind of reminded you to be humble and just be grateful for wherever we are at any time, at any moment. We're breathing. Yeah. We're doing what we love. What advice would you give aspiring musicians or bass players on that end, as far as relationships go and building relationships and making a career out of this?
Well, you know, man, it's such a big question, but it's very important right now, especially after the pandemic. And I would say two things. Like, for me, I put all my eggs in one basket. So I'm not recommending other people do what I did in the micro sense. Like, I didn't go to college. I didn't have any backup plan. I just got out of high school and hit the road.
Same with me.
And I was like, this is it. So if it works or it doesn't work, whatever, this is what I'm going to be doing. In fact, I chose it because I was like, you know, if I never make a lot of money, I could still be happy because I wasn't getting in traffic. And if I could just figure out just how to survive playing this bass guitar, to me, that would be success, right? So I put all my eggs in one basket. But I think no matter how that works out in the micro sense, I think it's a good idea to just put all your eggs and be all in.
Oh, I like
be
that.
All
be
in.
all
You know, because
in.
like one of my biggest mentors, Colonel Bruce Hampton, told me that 99% of success is just continuing to show up. So the idea is like, when the ship comes in, one day it's going to be your turn. There's so many numbnuts in this business. Somebody got drunk, right? Missed the plane, or just can't like get along with people on the bus, or, you know, has a addiction or whatever it is that takes them out of the game. And then they need somebody and they need them right now. And they're calling everybody. And you're one of the people that called. So the ship came in, started pulling the foghorn, and you left.
Right.
Because you gave up on yourself. So I stayed around long enough to when that foghorn went off, I went racing down to the dock and jumped on that bad boy. They were like looking for me. Come on, we need you. So that's one thing. The other thing is almost kind of the opposite, which is to make sure that you have a really good home life and an identity outside of this. Because, now I get it spiritually. I could go, okay, first I'm a human, which makes me, in my belief system, a child of the creator, however you want to. There's some kind of parental thing going on, the created and the creator, right? So that's my first thing. And that's where I get my worth, not in whether I make it or not make it in the music business, or if people say I'm a good bass player or not a good bass player or anything. They don't like the way I look. My skin's too dark, whatever your hang up is about me, or your judgment of me. First, I'm that. I'm a human, a child of the creator. And then I'm Jess's husband, Nigel's dad, and Kavi's dad, right? So each of these things requires some care, like a gardener, watering, weeding, making sure it gets enough sun, not too much sun, right? So my spiritual relationship, I got to take care of my body. I've got to be a good husband. I've got to be a good father, and all the varieties, all the branches off that tree, right? I have to take care of. And then music, a musician, a provider, which is one of the branches off of that tree of my family. You see, so now it's like I have this whole structure that's not, and I didn't have that before 40. And I was a mess.
Me too, man. Me too. So high five on getting it together.
Yeah, high five, man. Because, a lot of us don't make it. I've seen a lot of people die. And, my career has worked out to where I was like helping out these older icons, Allman Brothers, Grateful Dead, So I could, like an Allman Brothers band, we have this song, No One Left to Run With. It's just about all the people that died. And the video thing behind us shows this endless stream of people that died, that were there a generation. Hendrix, and just the list goes on and on. I used to watch it because I was just flabbergasted by how many. I was like, God, so many of y'all's friends died. Like so many. And then I realized it's the same thing for me now. Of course, I'm 56 now, right? But I've buried a bunch of my friends, too many.
Right.
And some of them. And it's like, oh my goodness, the stakes are for real here. So many of them died in their early 20s, in the late 60s and early 70s and stuff. So the lessons, are important. I'm glad that I got it by 40. I'm lucky to have even made it to 40. A lot of that is because I wasn't into like what I consider hard drugs.
Okay.
Right. So I think that helped. And I stopped drinking so damn much because that's maybe the hardest drug, tobacco, right?
Yeah. I quit drinking about 5 years ago. And I feel I'm a different person. So and let me tell you something. I just throw this out there because some people are atheists, and I understand why, because religious people have done a real bad job. And I count myself as one of them. We have not set a good example, but they don't call alcohol spirits for nothing, man. Yeah. I hear that.
Your spirit changes if you're really drunk. It does. It just does. There's some other spirits that get in there with you that are not good. Or however you want to look at them, draw the metaphor, like whatever. I'm saying metaphorically, I get why they call it spirits.
different things come out at different times, for sure. I didn't even know that was in there. What in the hell did I do?
Oh, man. I think it's a vibration. Like, Sun Ra said, where the problem with mankind is that man is out of tune with the universe, or our society, let's say, is out of tune with the universe. And that's how I look at, like, what are we tuning up to? So we vibrate on these frequencies. Well, if you're clear and you meditate, that's one frequency. When I'm sitting on the couch and Nigel's sitting next to me and I'm just snuggling with him, that's a great frequency right there.
That's
you know,
the best.
Now me hammered drunk at a bar is a completely different frequency that's probably not going to lead to the goodness of me snuggling with Nigel on the couch of that frequency, right?
And it's not as there's a satisfaction that comes from being content. And in those moments with my kids, where it could be 5 minutes or it could be 5 hours, but that moment together just fills my heart complete.
Yeah.
And I remember those, every single one of those moments. The moments of me getting all hammered at the bar. Yeah, okay, portions were awesome, fun for the second, but then it just, I don't remember those times. And it's meaningless. It's meaningless, and it's dangerous for me.
And the tab you have to pay for it afterwards.
That is the truth. Right? That is the truth.
So I mean, you know, it's like you can do whatever you want. So, you know, the time I'm getting with Nigel and Kavi and my wife, and it's all good. It's just all good. So I'm trying to tune into that and tune into all those good things. And then like a radio station that you really don't like, you just don't listen to it. You don't tune to that anymore. You just go by it.
Yeah.
You know?
I hear that, man. So you have been on tour forever, and you guys tour. You guys tour. You well, first let's tell everybody about the artists that you work with. As I know, but can you give us some of your work?
The first, you know, my first and biggest mentor and the person that I always wanted to play with the most was my older brother, Kofi Burbridge, who most people know from Tedeschi-Trucks Band and Tedeschi-Trucks Band, as far as out on our scene, you know. And then I have to mention Colonel Bruce Hampton, because we were in a band called the Aquarium Rescue Unit, Colonel Bruce Hampton and the Aquarium Rescue Unit. And that's how I ended up making my first little bit of name for myself.
How did you meet him? How did you meet him?
I was very wondering if I should even quit music, because this is the only time, unfortunately, because I put all my eggs in one basket, I had nowhere to go. But I was kind of at my bottom. I should have realized, well, you have nowhere to go but up. So, but the drummer, Jeff Sipes, said, hey, man, you should go meet this crazy guy, Colonel Bruce Hampton. A lot of the greatest musicians in Atlanta go play with him when they want to get their yah-yahs out and their frustrations out. And I was like, all right, cool, you know? And so I went to meet him, and we went out to his car. He wanted to give me his album, Arkansas, which really changed my life. But like, I was talking to him, and in the middle of a sentence, he just blurts out, he goes, August 24th at 2 a.m. And I was born August 24th at 1:57 in the morning. And I was like, wait a minute, Mr. Hampton. What? How did you do? Now, there's no cell. This is like 1988.
Okay.
We didn't have no cell phones. There's no Googling. So I don't think he knew my last name. So if he had Google, he couldn't have Googled it. Right? Like, I just was like, how did you do that? And I come to find out that he was extremely psychic, probably an extraterrestrial. I watched him do this hundreds of times, hundreds of just freak. I've seen some people like legitimately freak out. They were like, I mean, some people that were very religious thought it might be satanic. And I mean, it was like, I've really seen him freak some people out, man, for real. Like, wow. And not just guessing their birthday, doing other stuff that he couldn't possibly have known. So I was like, I don't know what's up with you, but I'm going to be hanging out with you if you let me until I figure out what the hell it is. And he, among the many other things he taught me to do, he helped me understand folk music.
Okay.
Delta blues, really old gospel, black and white, um, country, bluegrass, just all the folk musics. That I was much more of an instrumentalist. Like I wanted to see some chops. I wanted to hear some chops. I wanted to hear some like complicated structure. Like I loved, classical rock, progressive rock, fusion. I liked the stuff with elaborate architecture and unison lines and all this stuff. And my blind spot was, the old guy sitting on the corner with the beat up guitar that was singing something very simple, but that was his life story, his spiritual journey here on earth. And that's what, I got that huge piece from him. And that's what prepared me for the Allman Brothers band.
That is awesome.
Because if you don't know that blues thing and the country and bluegrass thing, like you need to know those stories. You need to know their stories to play Allman Brothers music, because it is just the later version of that. It's like electric, folk, Southern music, gumbo, all these different styles mixed together with some psychedelics too. And so that's their story, and he filled in that Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, that part of the story that I was missing musically. My dad had a wide interest in all different kinds of music. We heard classical and learned it, Indian classical, all this stuff, but he missed that. I turned him on to Howlin' Wolf,
oh, wow.
It was just such a kick for my dad. It was such a musicologist. A kick for me to turn him on to something he hadn't heard before. And I got that from Colonel Bruce. That was his blind spot that became my blind spot. He's a New York jazz guy,
Gotcha.
So, but that prepared me for the Allman Brothers, and then doing that for 17 years.
Was there a highlight on any of those shows that you can remember? In one particular moment where you thought, okay.
With the Colonel or with the Allman Brothers?
With the Allman Brothers.
No, what the highlight for me was that certain things that you would do over and over again would never get old.
That's beautiful.
Like playing Midnight Rider or Cross the Bear or whatever song, they would never get old. And you wonder, how is that? How would Cross the Bear make the hair on my arm stand up literally every time? Like you get that anticipation, and this line is coming, and then it comes and the crowd, you just feel like you almost start to tear up a little bit. It's just like, where is that magic? See, again, we get back to this mystical part. Like, what is that? What is that? That's it.
What do you think it is? What is it? What do you think it is?
It's the magic. It's the mystic. Mystic replies to mystery. So you cannot describe it with words. You cannot. And so we even make pictures and sounds because words aren't enough. And that's not enough.
That's true.
But that feeling with your kids, that's it.
That's it. That's it.
That feeling when your hair stands up, when Cross the Bear play, that's it. 100%. It's relational. It's like, it's a thing that happens between us. I don't know. This is why we make art. This is why we write Bibles. This is why we write even stories like Harry Potter and Star Wars. It's like, this is, we got to tell these stories to our kids to try to help them understand and identify what this it is.
Man. Yeah.
It's, I don't know.
I think
it's funny, like no matter what happens, whether we're talking about music or whether we're talking about politics or we're talking about whatever, it always seems to come back to this thing. For me anyway. Maybe I'm just,
that thing. No, it's I think being in touch and present in a particular moment definitely helps allowing yourself to feel that thing.
Yeah.
It
it's
opens
scary,
up.
right?
It opens
like
up
a lot
so many windows and so many just doors. It opens yourself. I mean, even you, with the Colonel. What's his last name?
Hampton, Colonel Bruce Hampton.
Colonel Bruce Hampton. Yeah. Him exposing you to some different vibes and different music really opened up so many different doors for you, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And he tried to do it like literally too. The very first book he gave me was the Book of the Tao by Lao Tzu.
Uh-huh.
And he gave me some books by Jiddu Krishnamurti. And I've related to those very much because they are kind of in that same, like if you get Star Wars and Star Trek and Harry Potter, then you get it, like, or the Bible or whatever. Like we're all trying to, but I was too young at the time really to process the Book of the Tao. I think the Krishnamurti I got more at the time because it's trying to trace an intellectual pathway through the non-intellectual. The Tao spoke in more subjective terms, which now that I'm older, just floor me so much. He was so wise that's the first book he gave me. Like, what a bullseye, man. What a bullseye. Yeah. So he taught me in both ways, showing me and explicitly like trying to point me to it.
That's great. So let's talk about bass a little bit. What I've seen you play, and I've been floored watching you play, I should say, 6-string. I think you've been known to kind of play the 6-string. What drew you to that?
I just wanted to be able to do chords. It's Kofi. I tell a funny story sometime, and it's true. It's not all of it, but I love telling it, especially when I'm with Victor Wooten. But it's partially true. I met Victor when I was 19. I was already on this pathway towards, I loved chord voicings because of my brother. And he was really into Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, George Duke, Jan Hammer, Joe Zawinul, right? Like those were his guys. And their voicings are just so, but Herbie was his main guy, and so I just always loved like how like a major 7 chord, you could play it, like one person could play it and then Kofi could play it and it would sound totally different. So that got me really into intervals. And then Kofi had perfect pitch. They discovered that when he was 7. So trying to keep up with him, I got really good relative pitch, which was all about intervals. So I was kind of already on this path. And then at 19 years old, I met Victor Wooten and all the Wooten brothers. Billy Drummond was like, I think the Burbridge brothers need to meet the Wooten brothers.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, who's the Wooten brothers? So he took me and Kofi over to their house. Our minds were just blown. I was like, what? I couldn't even play. I was just,
I wish I could have been a fly on the wall in that room.
Dude, yeah, I was 19 years old. Me and Vic are born a month apart, right? He's born on September 11th. And it was just like, who are these aliens? Oh my God. And that day, I remember I came home and I was like, well, I'm definitely going to pursue this chord thing because all of the rest of it, there's no real estate left anywhere else. And, but I was kind of on that path already, and it just is really because of my brother. And, I couldn't afford a 6-string. Anthony Jackson was the only one that had one at all.
Wow.
At that point. And then I remember when I first heard Patitucci, they said, oh, Chick Corea's got this new band. And Patitucci was playing a 6-string. But it was one of those handmade. I was like, I'm never going to be able to afford that. So I remember they had that Nathan East model of the Yamaha BB5000.
Oh, yeah.
That cream colored.
Yep.
So, and it was affordable. And so I went and bought one of those. And then I started, that's when I first started extrapolating 4-string chords onto 5. And that's when I realized, oh my God, if you could get the chord farther away from the bass note, it has this crazy sound like Charlie Hunter, you
Yeah.
know? And I was like, damn, one day when I get a six string, man, one day. And it took till 1991 or two, I think 91. And Modulus, we got a publishing deal from Warner Chappell with Colonel Bruce. So I was probably 25, 26. And I went to Corner Music, and I wanted to get a Steinberger six string, but they didn't make it. And they said, but there is this graphite bass called a Modulus that has a graphite neck, but the body's wood. Is that okay? And I said, well, let me try it. So I went there, JD from Corner Music in Nashville. I went and played it, loved it, and it was affordable because I just got this money from the publishing deal and I bought it. And I went straight to Reggie Wooten's house because he lived not far from me in Nashville. And I would stay up late nights learning chords, voicings, chord melody, just really diving in. And Reggie Wooten, man, he expanded my brain. My brother knew all that stuff, but he couldn't show me on a fretboard, you know?
Okay.
And Reggie helped me understand it in terms of a fretboard. And then I was off, you know?
Yes, you were. And okay, so when did all the scat stuff come into play?
That actually happened even before I got the six string, because Colonel Bruce, you know, you have to understand, Colonel Bruce was like the John Belushi of music, you know?
How do you mean?
Because he wasn't like an accomplished instrumentalist.
Okay.
Like, you know, like somebody that's just an instrumentalist would probably say he can't even play, you know? But he understood the life part of music and the folk part, the story part, the drama part, all these other parts, you know?
Yeah.
So he was able to teach in that way, you know, like he could do things on my bass that I couldn't do, you know?
Like, give me one example.
He would say, can you play like you never, like, play the way you used to play before you knew how to play?
Okay.
I was like,
okay.
Damn, you know, I can't. I was like, I've been spending my whole life trying to not play like that, you know?
Yeah.
But he wanted that side too. He was like, you know, you're just giving me like an edited part of yourself. You know, you're not giving me the full picture. Like, I want the side of you that makes a mistake. I want the side of you that is the amazing bass player, but I also want to hear you poke fun at yourself, or, you know what I mean? Like, just all the life parts.
Character.
Of music. Yeah. Like he used to always say, you know, your music doesn't have any threat. And I was like, what does that mean? He said, well, you know what you're going to play already. And so there's no anticipation like that you might do something different. Like all the greats have this threat, like, oh my God, what are they going to do? You're like hanging. I mean, think about Miles, right?
Right.
Like every next note, you're like, what crazy note is he going to pick? You know, like, you know, and I was like, well, how do I get that? He goes, well, you can't just play what you're going to practice. And he would be like, I could show you, I don't even need an instrument. And so I was like, what? He was like, he took off his shoe. He stood on stage with his shoe and he just held it. And he held it for long enough that people were like, what the hell's going on? Like, what's he doing? Like, it got everybody's attention. The threat was like immediately until it just almost started to disturb the whole room. And then he just dropped the shoe and walked off. And people were like, you know, and I just was like, and I was like, okay, I got to figure out how to do that on a bass. All right. It's just like so crazy, like how he could teach like that, but he couldn't, he didn't know what a diminished scale was.
Right.
You know?
That's
like,
definitely in the moment, man.
Yeah, you know, so he taught me like all these different things, watching his reaction to Howlin' Wolf and you know, Ralph Stanley, John Lee Hooker, Book of White or whatever. I mean, he loved jazz. He loved everything, but like watching his reactions to music that I didn't get yet pointed out to me what was so amazing about it. And he was right. I was like, oh, wow, how was I missing that, you know?
That's awesome. So I guess that brings me to another point of improvisation. Like when you're the gig with the Dead and Company, how much is rehearsed? How much is improvised? Because I've heard, you know, and seen videos of you guys, and it just, you know, it's a jam thing. It seems like it feels like. How much of that is improvised?
Well, you know, this gets very philosophical with them too, because it was born out of the acid test. So, you know, their music has, some of it has a lot of architecture. It's like classical in that way, you know? Okay. And I love that. That's the old fusion guy in me, you know? And you got to solo through the whole form. You got to go through every hallway, you know?
Wow.
And so it's like playing changes like jazz in that sense. But because this music was born out of the acid test, during the acid test, they were under no obligation to be the band. There were a lot of different things going on. There was dance and poetry and visual art and people just tripping, and they were the sound part of it. And then there was other sounds being made. It was just, so if they were like tripping too hard, they didn't have to keep playing. They could just like stop playing and go trip, right? So they were never under any pressure to do anything. So it ended up creating that foundation is a foundation of exploring, and that everything could be wiped off the table. Like this whole, we could build a sandcastle 50 feet high and then just smash it, you know, like nope. So at any moment, if the moment says smash the castle, we could smash it. So it's really incredible, an incredible thing to be a part of, because it's like Sun Ra in that way, where there's a lot of architecture to his songs. But if the spirit says we are now going to leave this planet or just flip into another dimension, that's where we're going. So that there's a part of it, and there's that threat that the Colonel was talking about. At any moment, the whole thing could just veer left and go to another galaxy. So with that built into the music, we then sometimes will play the form just like it's supposed to be played, and then sometimes it will go somewhere else. So and the jam part, obviously, is supposed to like, but it doesn't have to like go somewhere else. It just has to be what it honestly is in that moment, and it might. I mean, it's the ultimate threat.
Yeah.
If I hadn't played with the Colonel, like, how could I do this gig, right?
I was gonna say, I mean, jumping into a situation like that, it obviously involves listening to one another.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
On a level, just I'm sure by now you guys kind of know where it's going. And how long have you been doing that gig?
About 5 years now. You learn each other's tendencies for sure, but you can never say you know where it's going.
Yeah.
Or we're doing it wrong.
Is there ever a wrong with you guys?
No. There's a wrong intention. Yeah. Like if I'm playing to like mess you up, like we're playing together and I'm just deliberately don't give a shit about you, right? Or it maybe even sabotage, like that would be wrong. Wow. You could have a wrong intention, but not a wrong, like if your intention is right, there is no wrong.
Okay. I think that's probably the case in every band situation or every live, or every musical situation where you're playing with someone, not just by yourself. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, again, we get back to this thing. It's like, it's about forgiveness. So like, that's not to say there's no accidents and no mistakes. Right. But is that wrong? Now that if it's wrong, do I have to be penalized for it or corrected? It's like, no, we know what you meant to do.
Yeah.
You know, like there's forgiveness. So, and maybe Maybe that mistake sounded cool and someone's like, no, I thought it was cool. And then they play it again the second time and you're like, oh, wow, that is cool. So I mean, it's like, it could be all kinds of things.
Yeah, I personally feel that imperfection is perfection when it comes to art and music, because number one, it's subjective, but I appreciate that sometimes if the vibe is right, it doesn't need to be technically perfect or what.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I always tell people, I'm like, look, if your mom dies, are you going to cry in a key?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, part of music is making sound. It's a part of what we do as humans. Now, let's not even talk about music. We make sound. Now, we happen to make sound into patterns, but there's also the opposite of a pattern. There's just, a volcano explodes, right? It's not fractal, or maybe the patterns, I can't discern it, but like, I just say, like, if your mom dies, you're going to cry, not in a key. Some things are just emotional and spiritual, and they come out in sound and other things. So we can't have it all be perfect. When you say, to me, the imperfect is perfect, that's how I feel about my son. That's how I feel God feels about us.
I agree, man.
I'm like, yeah. And that's how we approach the music, for sure, with the Grateful Dead, and hopefully life,
How did you come into that gig?
It's from 17 years of cred with the Allman Brothers.
Gotcha.
It's part of it. I mean, we were on the same scene. To me, like, the roots of the jam band scene, let's put it this way. I feel like it's a crazy way my life turned out, because I thought I was going to be like a fusion musician that had to go to Europe to like have anybody listen to them / make any money. But the Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead are kind of the fathers of this jam band scene, the way they call it now, right?
Which I love, by the way. I think
me too.
I feel like playing in those situations would be so just freeing. And
it is.
It
absolutely is.
Yeah.
And those were the people. Those are the only people that got Colonel Bruce Hampton and the Aquarium Rescue Unit, and that's how we ended up on that scene. The hippies were the only one that got us. They, what few ones did. So that Fish, Wiseblood, Blues Traveler took us out on the road with them.
Very
and
cool.
On these festivals, and we played a bunch of those. The Allman Brothers heard about me and Jimmy Hearing, and the other guys too. Through that, 17 years with them now on this scene, kind of closer to the top,
Yeah.
Everybody on the scene knows who I am now, including the Grateful Dead, who were at the very top because they were the only ones playing stadiums. I mean, we played big places with the Allman Brothers, but we didn't play stadiums,
Yeah.
And so, it was basically they wanted either me or Mike Gordon,
Okay. Yeah.
And Mike Gordon was just too busy with Fish and his own band. And so I got the gig,
That's awesome, man. Congratulations. And you're enjoying it, obviously, right?
Huh?
You're enjoying it, obviously.
Immensely, because, it's like everything my whole life was prepared to do. I got all the pieces put together finally, and I was old enough, to really appreciate the Grateful Dead in a way that I wasn't before. I had spent many years trying to write songs and not being happy with most of them.
Yeah.
And then you learn some of the songs that Garcia and Hunter wrote together, or Bob Weir and Barlow wrote together, and you just see like what amazing things they created together. Timeless things that I think is as timeless as Joni Mitchell and Miles Davis and anybody. I really do, man. Like, all you jazz cats that are sleeping on the Grateful Dead, go learn Stella Blue Go learn China Doll and Comes a Time and Looks Like Rain and Black Throated Wind. Learn Lost Sailor, Saint of Circumstance, Help Slip. Learn, you're going to see the beauty. I wish somebody had done that with me, like learn these 8 tunes. And I also wish they had microdosed me and taken me to a show, but, I just wasn't, I was listening to music for what I wanted to hear out of it. And Colonel Bruce taught me a different way to listen to it. And then as I learned that and matured and grew, then I think I was finally ready. I guess when I got tapped for the gig, like learning 120 songs, I was like, wow, these guys are deep, really deep. It will be on my funeral playlist. No lie, with all the with Weatherport and Jocko and Miles, and there will be those Grateful Dead tunes at my funeral, or whatever, my celebration of when everybody's hanging out. I want it DJ'd. Got the DJ playlist together,
That is awesome. I mean, I guess you can't really ask for much more than that. Being content and playing music that you love, and there's such a legacy with that scene, at the top of that scene, and as a musician,
it's crazy because I feel like there's so many Dead fans that I will die not knowing this music as well as them. Now, in some ways, I know it more because I've learned it, through and through, and singing and playing it with the original guys. But they know stuff about their history that it'll take me a lifetime to learn. So I can learn something very important about the Grateful Dead from any average fan. And I kind of look at them that way, as like part of the Grateful Dead library. That is a resource, because I'm telling you, like, just people tell me stuff all the time. I write down and go find on YouTube. I'm like, damn.
They are music fans, I believe.
Absolutely. Yeah. They check out all the music that influenced the Grateful Dead, which is how they got on to Aquarium Rescue Unit, because they're just curious. Yeah. And it's really beautiful. I mean, Jerry, all those guys were extremely curious, man. Extremely curious and diligent,
So what do you think you took away from the Derek and Susan gig, man?
Well, a lot of things. That's it's a many layered answer. A big, probably the biggest thing for me was getting to actually be in a band with my brother again, which had probably been maybe 15 years at that point, at least 11 or 12, since we were actually in the same band, playing night after night together.
How did that feel?
Well, it was great. It had been a long time. Of course, we grew up playing together and had played in a bunch of bands together. And it just so happened, with ARU, and he went with Tedeschi-Trucks Band, and we were just like had this long period. And then we would see each other and play, sitting in with someone else or something, like we would get to play together, but just not in a band together. So that was really, really great. And it was funny because, that telepathic thing, it was like it didn't have 10, 15 years off at all. Like it had no time.
Magic is magic. There's just something there that is just completely unsaid.
It's just right, like it never stopped. So that was cool. And seeing Derek and Susan had 2 different bands, and seeing them put their thing together and become this one unit, it just felt like it was so strong. There was just like this big sum of the parts,
Just like you think it was a family vibe out there, aside from it actually being the family with your bro?
Well, absolutely, for sure. I mean, even their company's called Swamp Family.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So it has family in the title, So yeah, it was great. And then me and Kofi got to do a bunch of when we were young, fusion heads, We used to have those live at Montreux Jazz Festival, and so we got to play we played those with TTB. We got to do those together, North Sea Jazz Festival, Montreux, all those European gigs. So we got to do a lot, before Kofi passed away. It was cool.
And that's beautiful. And, my condolences on that.
Thank you.
Let's talk about gear. I know you were playing Modulus quite a bit. Are you still playing Modulus?
Yeah, the older I get, the more my back hurts. So I went back to that old green Modulus that I had.
Okay.
My very first 6-string that I got like in 91, I think.
Which you completely burn on, by the way. Oh
thank you. I actually went back to that bass. I had given it away. I had to try to remember who I gave it to, and it was sitting in a closet. They weren't using it, and I was like, "Do you mind if I take it back? Because that's the lightest one it's the lightest 6-string I ever owned."
What is it? What do you think it weighs?
I don't know. I guess I should put it on a scale or something. But the neck is hollow. There's no truss rod in the neck.
Oh, okay.
So it's super light. Like I think my old 76 or whatever Fender Jazz is as heavy as that 6-string.
Oh wow. Okay.
My 4-string.
Yeah.
But so I went back to that because it was the lightest bass that I had. So that's my main bass right now. And then I'm using Epiphany amps and Dario strings. Someone asked me about strings. I was like, I use the same strings that I did when I was 15 years old, and I'm 56. Are just Dario nickel medium gauge, except for now there's 6-string and it's long scale or super long or whatever. But
what do you like about them?
For me, for so many years, the short answer is it's home.
Got you.
For so many years, they were the easiest thing to find in a music. So if I broke a string, and I was so poor that I would just replace that string.
Yeah.
How
often have you boiled strings? Because I used to do that a million times.
Yeah, I used to do all that. I used to break them and then cut the ball off and make a knot and put the ball, rethread the same string.
That is crafty. Works.
But it was terrible because when you have a string that's been used for a long time, it has those divots where it's pressed into the fret.
Yeah.
So when you put the string back through, it's not facing exactly down. So sometimes your fingers are sliding over all those divots. It's just like the worst. I was like, man, it sucks being poor. And then if you broke a low B string, I remember it was like $5 or $6 for one string. I was
right.
Like, $5 for one string? That's like 2 meals for me, So it's just like, yeah. So, but then I switched to other strings and I just was like, it's apples and oranges. Those strings, that's what I'm used to. That's what I've been doing since I was 15 years old. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's not like I never tried anything else. I tried stainless steel. I tried DR, Rotosound, Fender. I tried Labella. I tried, a bunch of stuff, man, So, but it just felt like home.
I got you. I hear that. What about effects?
Now I'm using some. I have a reverb pedal. I have an octave divider. I have a pitch shifter that goes up and it'll do fourths, fifths, thirds, all that stuff. And I really don't use it that much.
I was going to say, how often do you actually use it?
I don't like the tone. It sounds very synthy.
Okay.
But the one thing I've really been experimenting with is this distortion. Because it's not like I'm getting distortion with it, but if you just turn it on just a little bit, I think maybe it's what I need is an overdrive more than a distortion.
Yes.
It just all of a sudden just beefs up. Just
Keeps
a little
warm.
bit.
Yeah.
If I turn on too much, it distorts and actually closes back up and feels like it compresses back down. But there's this little point where I just turn it on, it just opens up and gets bigger. And I was like, okay, maybe I need to keep messing with this thing, you know.
Which one are you using?
Which one is this? This is a Mxr Bass Distortion.
I have that same one. I love it.
Yeah, I have a couple different ones. This is the one I'm messing with right now. Just started twisting knobs, and I was like, wow, I really like this. So I'm going to keep investigating that. My pedals got stolen when I was 17 years old.
Oh, man.
And I had everything. I had an MXR everything. It was like 5 of them, you know, flanger, phase shifter, envelope filter, all that stuff. And I didn't think I could get through the gig. And I was like, wow, you can't play bass anymore without all this stuff on top of it. And so I didn't buy effects again for a really long time, like decades.
You find yourself depending on some effects, or you
it just scared me. Yeah. I was 17. I was like, wow, you can't play bass anymore. I was like, well, F that, dude. Like, I'm a bassist. That's it. Now, I'm not, many years I was biased against him until I saw Doug Wimbish. And I remember someone said, you got to see this thing. It was just him and Will Calhoun and this singer named Vanks. They did a trio.
Uh-huh.
And it was at a NAMM show a long time ago. And someone told me when they were playing. And I walked up before the scheduled concert and all their stuff was set up, and I just saw this sea of pedals, just like it looked like there was 29, 30 pedals, right? And I was like, oh man, this ain't gonna be good, but I still came back and watched the concert and was so blown away. I had to just eat my words. It was like orchestral what he did with it. It was pure genius. And he's a great just bass player.
Absolutely.
And I was like,
his setup
wow.
is like it looks like he's steering a spaceship or something.
Mission control.
Yes, exactly. But he definitely knows how to use them wisely.
Every single thing is like I was so amazed at that performance. So I'm not an anti-pedal, I was for many years, but I'm not.
I hear that, man. What, brother, what inspires you?
Well, my kids. My wife. Nature. I used to think hell is other people, but now I still think that, but heaven is also other people. Gotta embrace the yin yang.
Yes,
so
sir.
Don't get too focused on the yin and end up denying the yang, or vice versa, right? So people really inspire me. They really do. And I don't know, possibilities. Just the fact that there is the possibility that things could go way better, micro and macro. Like, we have this great possibility, and it's terrifying, but it's also maybe the most beautiful and the thing to be most grateful for, and the most inspiring for me,
Yes, sir. You mentioned your kids. When I see my children smile, that inspires me. That makes my entire life, my day.
Yeah. When I hear them laugh.
Yes.
I remember Robin Williams saying on Inside the Actor's Studio, what's your favorite sound? He said, the sound of children laughing. And man, now that I have 2 kids, boy, do I get that. There's something about their laughter, because I know the quality of it. Like, I know if it's genuine or not.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're all wound up and they're just making themselves laugh like crazy people.
Yeah.
But when it's really that just gut, and I love to make them laugh. So if I can really crack them up and it just works perfectly, I just get so much oxytocin just flooding into my system,
Pure joy, man. pure joy.
I remember watching Sun Ra. They said, "What are you inspired by?" And he said, "The birds, nature, sounds." I just was like, it's so beautiful, like everything.
Yeah.
We've lost our sense of wonder. So if you think about anything, if you look at your microphone or the tip of your nose, if you could cut yourself open and look at how you're constructed inside, you would just be blown away. The fact that we're zooming, we should be inspired by every single thing. The screen, a liquid crystal display, like, wow.
I agree, man. It's back to being, present and open and really not taking anything for granted.
Yeah.
I think that is inspiring.
You ever do this when you're sick, when you got the flu? You just feel so bad. And you're like, okay, Oteil in the future, remember to be damn thankful when you just feel normal. Just baseline, flatline, nothing, just boring. That's so good, man. It's so good. You would kill to feel like that right now. You know what I mean? And so I do, man. I take time to remember, like, hey, man, for right now, like, I'm not sick. I don't have cancer. I don't even have a broke finger or something that's a broken finger, something that will eventually heal. So we're talking about, trivial or deep, right? All my family's good right now. All of them, Thank you, universe. Thank you, God. Thank you, Heavenly Mother and Father. Give thanks to something.
That is the truth. Give thanks to something.
The hand of fate, whatever.
Yeah.
Where Sun Ra said, you want fate to be in a pleasant mood. When fate's in a pleasant mood.
So, are you on social media? How can people find you?
I think it's Oteil _Burbridge on Instagram. And my wife, I got off Facebook. Okay. And I got off Twitter. And
I know I saw you dancing around on TikTok or something, right?
I drew I'm talking too loud. I hope this isn't destroyed. I drew the line at Snapchat. Okay. So I'm old. Actually, I drew the line at Instagram because I was like, I'm not Snapchatting. And TikTok, I don't even know what that is. Although I'm going to give credit to the TikTokers that pulled that thing on the Trump rally where they thought it was sold out. I'm sorry. It's not whatever if I offend some people and I'm not apolitical.
Well, it just shows how popular and how powerful social media can be.
I took my hat off to TikTok while I still will not get on it. Yeah. Bob Weir just got on TikTok.
Really?
Yeah.
What's somebody
he doing? Talked him into
Is
it.
He working out or something? Or
I think it's great. No, he's giving life advice.
Okay. Okay.
And which he actually can give some. When you made it at what he lived through, whoo, how he's made it is like he definitely can give some advice. But yeah, it's I haven't done it. So I just have the Instagram, and there's a fan page that my wife does on Facebook that's really easy to find. Okay. I have a lot more fake impersonators now. Oh, someone even did my mom.
What?
They did a fake page.
You have to be pretty bored to do those. I don't know. That always trips me out, but yeah.
I think they're casting a net. And it's like you cast a net, and then every once in a while you get something.
Man, I appreciate you. I really appreciate your insights and positivity. Any advice for young bass players before we go?
Actually, it's funny because, yeah, I think it depends. It's hard. Well, I'll give one piece of advice that Colonel Bruce gave me. He said 99% of success is showing up, which means, keep showing up to the dock every day the dock was built for a ship to come in, and the ship's going to come in. And if you don't keep going to the dock every day, when it does show up, you're not going to get on it. So just keep doing it. And some of the younger people, like, I don't know if it's the right thing. I'm like, if it's not, this business is going to weed you out because it's just terrible. Because you got to deal with the music business, and business is war. And so unless you like that kind of thing, which I don't, I'm the more artistic type.
Me too.
It'll weed you out if you just, we do this because we have to do it, or because we were made to do it. It's what I don't know. I have to on whatever level it is. But the other thing is, like, it's great while you're young to be on the road all the time and blah, blah, blah. And so I'm not saying there's not a time for it, but at some point you should really cultivate a good home life so that you have reality to A-B with life on the road. Because if your A and B is on the road, then you have no idea how far away from the shore you've swam. And that was my problem and a lot of people's problem that I see. And when I did cultivate a good home life, finally, I could tell, man, even like with Dead & Company, I mean, we fly on private planes sometimes. You can't do it any more cushy than we do it. Like, there is no more, unless they build a transporter, like a Star Trek.
Soon. Soon.
And I'm all on board, but still, when I get home, when I wake up that next morning, I'm like, oh, now I can feel how much my gas tank is down from when I left, that morning that I woke up when I left. That's my AB. And even touring with Dead & Company, I'm like, ooh, I'm tired.
Yes.
And we routinely have not just one day off in between gigs, but 2 days off in between. It's like, it can get very boring, But I still, so you think I would be well rested, but you're just still on the move. And man, I get home and I'm like, wow, I really feel like 2 years older. Yeah.
I hear that, man. That is some great advice. On that note, that is our show for today. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you, man.
Thank you for being so positive, dude. And it's not just all about the bass. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Everybody out there, stay healthy and kind, spread love and good vibes and inspiration. And remember, you got this. Follow your path and just play. I'm Josh Paul. Hope to see you all out there sometime soon. And thank you very much to Dunlop for making the show possible. Be sure to check out Bass Freqs wherever you get your podcasts.